You hear the crash before you see it? Your mailbox explodes into splinters. Through your window, a car peels away. Your hands shake as you rush outside into the rain. That's when you spot it, a license plate lying in the wreckage, still warm. You flip it over, and everything changes. Because you know exactly whose name is registered to that plate, and she has no idea you saw it coming. The morning had been ordinary, the kind of day that slips through your fingers without leaving a mark. Sarah Chen stood in her kitchen, nursing cold coffee and scrolling through her phone, half listening to the local news droning from the counter. Her teenage daughter Emma was upstairs getting ready for school. Her husband Marcus was already at work. The house hummed with that particular quiet of a Wednesday morning, the kind that makes you forget anything bad could happen at all. She didn't hear the engine at first. The sound grew louder, not the normal progression of a car passing by, but something accelerating, revving with aggressive purpose. Sarah glanced up from her phone just as the kitchen window rattled. That wasn't right. Their mailbox sat at the edge of their driveway, a good 30 feet from the front door, positioned where it always was, where it had been for 7 years. The crash came next, violent and total. Sarah's coffee cup fell from her hand, shattering across the tile floor. She stood frozen for a half second, her mind struggling to process what she'd just heard. Then instinct took over. She ran toward the front door, yanked it open, and stepped out onto the porch just in time to see a gray sedan disappearing around the corner 2 houses down. No brake lights. No hesitation. Just gone. Mom? What happened? Emma's voice came from behind her, small and frightened. Her daughter stood in the doorway in her school uniform, backpack slung over one shoulder. Stay inside, Sarah said automatically, though her eyes remained fixed on the spot where the car had vanished. She moved down the driveway in a daze, her socks soaking through in the wet grass. The mailbox was destroyed, not damaged, destroyed. The post had snapped clean in half, and the metal box hung at an angle, bent and twisted like a broken jaw. Scattered across the lawn were pieces, wood splinters, scraps of metal, and oddly, some papers that had been inside, bills mostly, and a package that had been waiting for the postal carrier. Sarah's heart was still hammering. Hit and run. Someone had actually hit her mailbox and just left. She pulled out her phone to call the police, but as she crouched down to photograph the damage, something caught her eye. There, half buried in the grass near the mailbox post, was a glint of white and red, a license plate. It was bent at the corner where it had apparently torn free from the sedan during impact. Sarah picked it up with shaking hands, water dripping from its surface. The plate was warm, still warm from the friction of whatever had torn it loose from the vehicle. Her breath caught. The number stared back at her, KV2847. She knew that plate. She'd seen it 100 times, 1,000 times, in the parking lot at Riverside Country Club where she was a member. She'd seen it parked next to her car during tennis tournaments. She'd seen it pull into a reserved spot during her daughter's school fundraisers. The registered owner was Jennifer Walsh, or as Sarah knew her, Karen behind closed doors, the mother of Emma's best friend. The woman who had spent the last 3 months deliberately freezing Sarah out of their friend group for reasons that had never been made clear. Sarah stood very still, the license plate heavy in her hands. "Mom?" Emma called from the porch. "Are you okay?" Sarah looked back at her daughter, then back at the plate in her hands. She thought about Jennifer's constant criticism, the way she'd suddenly stopped inviting Sarah to book club meetings. She thought about the rumors that had started circulating around the neighborhood about how Sarah was fake, how she didn't fit in. She thought about running into Jennifer at the grocery store last week and having the woman literally turn her cart around to avoid her. None of that mattered right now. What mattered was that Jennifer Walsh had hit her mailbox and driven away, and Jennifer Walsh had no idea that her license plate was sitting in Sarah's. "Palm like a smoking gun, I'm calling the police," Sarah said quietly. But even as she said it, something else was forming in her mind, a darker thought, one that made her grip the license plate tighter. Evidence, intent, deliberateness. Did Jennifer hit the mailbox accidentally? Or had she done it on purpose? In the distance, she heard sirens beginning to wail. Sarah looked down at the license plate one more time, then at her daughter's worried face on the porch, then back at the destroyed mailbox that had stood in their yard for 7 years. She knew something then, with a certainty that made her skin prickle. This wasn't over. This was just the beginning, and somehow Jennifer Walsh had just made a very, very serious mistake. End of part 1. Would you like me to continue with parts 2 to 5? Or would you like to generate a video script based on this story for platforms like YouTube, TikTok, or Instagram? The police arrived 17 minutes later. 2 officers in a cruiser with tired faces and the practiced movements of people who'd handled dozens of minor incidents that week. Officer Martinez was older, methodical, taking photographs of the mailbox with his phone while his younger partner, Officer Chen, filled out the incident report. Sarah stood on the porch, the license plate held behind her back like she was hiding evidence of a crime she'd committed. She hadn't called Jennifer. That surprised her in retrospect. Her first instinct had been to reach out. "Hey, I think your license plate fell off my mailbox," the kind of neighborly text that would smooth things over, prove she was the bigger person. But something had stopped her. Something about the way that car had accelerated. Something about the deliberateness of it all. "You didn't see the driver?" Officer Martinez asked, looking up from his photos. "No," Sarah said. "I was inside. By the time I got outside, the car was already turning the corner." "But you know who it was?" Sarah's grip tightened on the license plate. She could feel Emma watching from behind the screen door, her daughter's eyes wide with a kind of intensity that only children could muster. The intensity of someone witnessing something that would matter later. "I found this," Sarah said, and pulled the plate from behind her back. "In the grass. It came off the car." Officer Martinez took it carefully, turning it over in his hands. Officer Chen stepped closer, reading the number aloud. KV2847. "Okay, that makes this easier. We can run this. I know who it is," Sarah said quietly. The officers exchanged a glance. That specific look that cops get when a situation suddenly shifts from a simple property damage call to something with personal angles and complications. Officer Martinez pulled out a small notebook. "And who would that be?" "Jennifer Walsh. She lives about 6 blocks from here. Her daughter and my daughter are friends." There was a pause. Officer Chen cleared his throat. "So this wasn't exactly a stranger hitting your mailbox." "No," Sarah said. "It wasn't. Do you have any reason to believe this was intentional?" Officer Martinez was watching her carefully now, his pen poised above his notepad. "Any conflicts? Disputes?" Sarah hesitated. This was the moment where she could downplay it, where she could suggest it was probably an accident, where she could still take the high road. But she thought about the book club. She thought about the rumors. She thought about the way Jennifer had looked at her in the grocery store, like she was something that needed to be eliminated. "We had a falling out," Sarah said. "Recently. A few months ago. I'm not entirely sure why, but she's been cold toward me. And my family." Officer Martinez wrote something down. "Okay, we'll run this plate. If the vehicle is registered to Jennifer Walsh, we'll make contact, get her statement. It's possible this was accidental. She could have hit something else, didn't know the plate came off. But we'll follow up." After the officers left, Sarah stood in her driveway for a long time, watching the spot where the mailbox had been. Emma came out and stood beside her, still in her school uniform. "Was it really Jennifer's mom?" Emma asked. "We don't know for sure yet," Sarah said, which was technically true but felt like a lie anyway. "But you think it was?" Sarah looked at her daughter. 13 years old, old enough to understand nuance, too young to understand the ways that relationships could curdle and turn. "Yes," she said. "I think it was." That afternoon, after dropping Emma at school, they'd decided life went on even when mailboxes didn't. Sarah made a decision. She opened her laptop at the kitchen table and navigated to the Riverside Country Club website. Jennifer Walsh's profile was there. The club's member directory was public. She found Jennifer's information, phone number, email address, and most importantly, her membership since 2019. Sarah stared at the screen for a long time. Then she clicked on recent events and scrolled back 3 months. to around the time when Jennifer had stopped inviting her to things. There it was, a book club meeting on March 15th. Sarah had been there. She remembered the meeting clearly. They'd been discussing some thriller about a woman taking revenge on her unfaithful husband. Sarah remembered Jennifer's reaction to it, the way she'd suddenly turned cold midway through the discussion, the way she'd looked at Sarah with something that might have been disgust. Sarah had asked her about it afterward. "Did I say something wrong?" Jennifer had just smiled that tight, controlled smile. "No," she'd said. "I just think people aren't always who they pretend to be." Sarah had felt confused and hurt, but she'd let it go. Life was complicated. People had bad days. She'd assumed Jennifer would eventually explain herself, or that the situation would naturally resolve. Instead, it had calcified into this, a wall of silence punctuated by the sound of an accelerating engine and the crack of splitting wood. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Her stomach dropped. The message read, "You shouldn't have given the police my license plate number." Sarah's hands trembled. She read the message 3 times, as if the words might change, might reveal themselves to be something else entirely. But they didn't. She typed back, "Jennifer?" The response came almost immediately. "You want to play games? Let's play games. But remember, you started this, not me." Sarah's blood went cold. She stood up from the table, her chair scraping backward loudly. Through the kitchen window she could see the driveway, the empty space where the mailbox had been, the crushed grass still bearing the marks of Jennifer's tires. She thought about what Officer Martinez had said. "We'll make contact. Get her statement." That conversation was going to happen. Jennifer knew it. And somehow, she'd known that Sarah had turned her in, had handed the license plate to the police rather than trying to resolve it quietly between neighbors. Sarah typed back, "I don't know what your problem is with me, but hitting my mailbox was crossing a line. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, my problem is that you're a liar and a fraud, and everyone at the club knows it now, or they will. But go ahead, call the police. See where that gets you." Sarah stared at the message. A liar, a fraud? She had done nothing to Jennifer Walsh. She had been nothing but kind to her daughter, to their entire family. This hatred seemed to have emerged from nowhere, fully formed and toxic. She thought about calling Marcus at work, but what would she even say? That Jennifer Walsh was threatening her? That she'd escalated a mailbox incident into something far more sinister? That night, Sarah lay in bed while Marcus slept, staring at the ceiling. Her phone sat on the nightstand, dark and ominous, waiting to buzz with the next message. She thought about turning it off, but she knew she wouldn't. She needed to know what Jennifer was doing. She needed to understand the scope of this, whatever this was. At 2:47 a.m., her phone buzzed. Another text from Jennifer. "By the way, I told the country club board about what happened at the March book club meeting, about what you said about Amanda Chen. Funny how people don't remember these things the way you do. But I recorded it. I have the recording, and I sent it to them." Sarah's chest tightened. The March book club meeting. She'd made an offhand comment about Amanda Chen, a comment about Amanda's recent promotion that Sarah had meant as a joke, but which, in retrospect, could have sounded cruel. It had been a moment of weakness, a moment where Sarah had let her insecurity speak instead of kindness. She hadn't thought Jennifer had even been paying attention, but Jennifer had been. Jennifer had been recording, and now Sarah understood. This wasn't about the mailbox at all. The mailbox was just the beginning. She woke to 17 missed calls from the country club. 17. She scrolled through them, her hands shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. There were also 32 text messages, some from members she considered friends, some from people she barely knew. The messages ranged from sympathetic to vicious, but they all contained the same thread. "Did you really say that about Amanda Chen?" Sarah called the club's administrative office. She got Linda Vasquez, the membership director, a woman she'd chatted with dozens of times over the years. "Linda, I need to understand what's happening," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice steady. There was a pause, a long one. Then, Sarah, we received a recording and a formal complaint from Jennifer Walsh yesterday. In the recording, you make comments about Amanda Chen that several board members found troubling. We're going to need to schedule a hearing. A hearing? Linda, I barely remember saying anything, and it was a private conversation at a book club meeting. I certainly didn't mean. The recording is quite clear, Linda interrupted, her voice taking on that particular tone of forced professionalism that people use when they're trying to fire you. And frankly, we've received additional complaints, other incidents, other comments that members are now coming forward about. Sarah felt the floor tilt beneath her. What comments? From who? I can't discuss individual complaints at this stage, Linda said. But the board will be in touch about scheduling your hearing. After she hung up, Sarah sat at her kitchen table and did something she hadn't done in years. She cried. Not delicate tears, but the kind of crying that comes from a place of primal panic. The crying of someone watching their life crack apart in real time. Emma found her there an hour later. Mom? Her daughter set down her backpack slowly, carefully, as if approaching a wounded animal. What's wrong? Sarah wiped her face with the back of her hand. Nothing, honey. Just a rough morning. Is this because of Jennifer's mom? Because some girls at school are saying weird stuff. Sarah's blood went cold. What kind of stuff? Like they're saying you're mean. That you said racist stuff. That's not true, right? Sarah pulled her daughter into a hug, but her mind was racing. How had this spread so fast? How had a recording from a private book club meeting turned into school-wide gossip by Friday morning? Unless Jennifer hadn't just sent it to the country club. Unless she'd sent it everywhere. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Call me now! She called him immediately, dreading what was coming. I just got off a call with my boss, Marcus said without preamble. His voice was tight, controlled, the way it got when he was very angry or very scared. Someone sent my company an email this morning. It contained a recording of you making offensive comments at some club event. They wanted to make sure I was aware of the kind of person my wife is. My boss asked me directly if you were involved in any kind of discriminatory behavior. Marcus, I told him it was clearly a personal attack. I told him I didn't appreciate someone dragging family matters into my workplace. But Sarah, what the hell is happening? Why is someone sending recordings of you to my job? It's Jennifer Walsh, Sarah said. The woman with the license plate. I think she's trying to destroy me. There was a silence on the line. Then, what? Sarah, that's insane! Why would she do that? I don't know, Sarah said, and realized it was true. She still didn't understand. I don't know what I did to her. Figure it out, Marcus said, and he hung up. Sarah spent the next 2 hours scrolling through her phone, through social media, through every digital footprint she could find. Jennifer had been busy, very busy. She'd posted in the country club's private Facebook group a vague but damning post about members who pretend to be allies while making racist comments behind closed doors. The post had gotten 47 comments, most of them either supportive or piling on their own versions of Sarah's supposed crimes. But worse than that were the direct messages. Women Sarah had considered friends were distancing themselves. Some were apologetic and vague. Others were direct. I can't be associated with someone like you. What you said about Amanda was disgusting. We're done. Sarah tried calling Amanda Chen directly, thinking she could explain, could apologize, could somehow fix this. But Amanda didn't answer. Sarah left a voicemail. Amanda, I'm so sorry for anything I said that hurt you. I was wrong. Please call me back so I can apologize properly. Amanda never called back. By Saturday afternoon, Sarah had made a decision. She was going to go to Jennifer's house and confront her directly. She had to understand what had sparked this, what comment or action had caused Jennifer to decide that Sarah needed to be erased from her world. She didn't tell Marcus. She didn't tell Emma. She just got in her car and drove to the address she'd found in the country club directory. Jennifer's house was in a better part of the neighborhood than Sarah's, a newer development with larger, lots and more expensive landscaping. Sarah parked across the street and sat in her car for 10 minutes, trying to figure out what she was going to say. Before she could move, Jennifer came out of the house. She was carrying a coffee cup. Moving toward her car, the gray sedan that now had a new license plate. She saw Sarah's car and stopped. For a moment, they just stared at each other across the street. Then Jennifer smiled. Not a friendly smile. A smile that suggested she'd been expecting Sarah. That this was all part of some larger plan that only she understood. Sarah got out of her car. "Why?" Sarah called across the street. "Why are you doing this?" Jennifer set down her coffee cup on her car's hood. She was wearing yoga clothes, her hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail, looking completely serene. "You really don't know, do you?" She called back. "No," Sarah said. "I don't. I've tried to be nice to you. I've included your daughter. I've been nothing but kind." "That's the problem," Jennifer said. She walked toward Sarah slowly, deliberately. "You've been fake, all of it. The kindness, the inclusion, all of it. And everyone was starting to see it. Everyone was starting to realize that you're not actually a good person." "That's not fair," Sarah said. "You don't even know me." "I know you better than you think," Jennifer said. She was closer now, close enough that Sarah could see the intensity in her eyes, the kind of intensity that goes beyond mere anger into something more unhinged. "I've been watching you for months. The way you talk about people when you think no one's listening. The way you smile at people's faces and then mock them behind their backs. The way you position yourself as this perfect woke ally while actually being deeply unkind. I'm not," Sarah started, but Jennifer held up a hand. "I was going to let it go," Jennifer continued. "I was just going to distance myself and move on. But then you told that joke about Amanda at the book club, and Amanda heard it, and she cried in my car for 20 minutes, and I decided I was done letting you get away with it." "I didn't mean—" "Nobody ever means it," Jennifer interrupted. "That's what makes it worse. You do these things and you don't even realize the damage. You move through the world hurting people and never having to face any consequences. Well, now you're facing consequences." Sarah felt something crystallize inside her then, something cold and hard. "You hit my mailbox on purpose. This whole thing, the recording, the complaints, all of it. It's planned." Jennifer's smile widened. "Finally, you're figuring it out." "That's crazy," Sarah said. "That's genuinely insane." "Maybe," Jennifer said. "Or maybe it's justice. Maybe it's what happens when someone like you finally has to answer for the things they've done." Sarah turned and walked back to her car. She could hear Jennifer calling after her. "Tell the police I said hello." As Sarah drove away, her phone buzzed. A text from Officer Martinez. "We need to talk about your allegation. Jennifer Walsh's statement contradicts yours significantly. She says she didn't hit your mailbox. She says you hit her car. She backed up to get away from an aggressive confrontation, and her license plate came loose. She has witnesses and dashcam footage. We're going to need you to come into the station." Sarah pulled over on the side of the road, unable to drive. Jennifer had dash-cam footage. Jennifer had witnesses. Jennifer had constructed an entire counter-narrative where Sarah was the aggressor, where Jennifer was the victim. And somehow, Sarah realized with sickening clarity, Jennifer had probably already shown that footage to Officer Martinez, had already poisoned the well. Sarah had come to this confrontation thinking she held the upper hand, a license plate, evidence of the hit and run. But she'd walked straight into a trap. Jennifer had anticipated everything, had planned for this moment. And now Sarah was about to be investigated for something she hadn't done. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from the country club's board. "Your membership has been suspended pending the outcome of your hearing. In light of recent developments, we're also asking that you not attend club events until this matter is resolved." Then another text from Marcus. "I need you to come home. We need to talk." The school called. Emma is having a breakdown. Sarah sat in her car, hands gripping the steering wheel, and understood something fundamental. Jennifer Walsh had destroyed her. Not quickly, not cleanly, but thoroughly. The mailbox had just been the opening move. Everything else, the record? The police station was cold and sterile in the way that police stations always are. Fluorescent lights that made everyone look slightly corpse-like, plastic chairs that squeaked, and the underlying smell of fear and bureaucracy. Sarah sat across from Officer Martinez in an interrogation room that wasn't technically an interrogation room, though it certainly felt like one. Officer Martinez placed a folder on the table between them. Inside was a copy of Jennifer's dashcam footage. He pressed play on his laptop, and Sarah watched a video of herself pulling into Jennifer's driveway 3 days ago. Watched herself get out of her car yelling. Watched herself gesture wildly at Jennifer's gray sedan. The audio was unclear, the angle weird, but the visual was damning. Sarah looked unhinged, angry, aggressive. Your version of events, Officer Martinez said carefully, was that Ms. Walsh intentionally hit your mailbox and fled the scene? But according to her statement, you approached her vehicle in her driveway, you became verbally abusive, and when she tried to leave, you struck her car. She has 2 witnesses, her sister and her sister's husband, who were at her house that day and can corroborate her account. That's not what happened, Sarah said. Her voice sounded small, defeated. She hit my mailbox deliberately. I found her license plate in the grass. According to Ms. Walsh, her license plate was loose from a previous incident. When you hit her car, the impact dislodged it. She has a mechanic's report from 2 weeks prior documenting that the plate had come loose and that she'd been meaning to get it resecured. Sarah's stomach dropped. Jennifer had thought of everything. She'd created documentation. She'd secured witnesses. She'd turned Sarah into the aggressor. There's something else, Officer Martinez said. He slid another document across the table. It was a police report, filed yesterday, by Jennifer Walsh. Ms. Walsh filed a report claiming that you've been harassing her, that you've been calling her repeatedly, showing up at her house unannounced, making threats. She says you told her that you'd make sure everyone knew what kind of person she really was. She's requesting a restraining order. Sarah felt the room spin. I never said that. And I've called her once. Once. She's the one who's been texting me threats. Do you have those text messages? Officer Martinez asked. Sarah pulled out her phone and scrolled to the messages from Jennifer. But when she looked at them, her blood went cold. The messages were gone. All of them. The entire conversation thread had been deleted. They were here, Sarah said, her voice rising. She texted me saying I shouldn't have given the police her license plate. She said I was a liar and a fraud. She said, Sarah, Officer Martinez said gently, I'm going to be honest with you. Right now, it's your word against hers. You have no physical evidence of these text messages. She has dashcam footage, witnesses, and documentation. And she's filed a formal complaint alleging that you initiated contact aggressively. Because she set this up, Sarah said desperately. She deliberately hit my mailbox to start this. She's trying to destroy me. Why would she do that? Officer Martinez asked. He didn't sound skeptical exactly, but he didn't sound convinced either. Sarah opened her mouth and closed it. How could she explain it? How could she explain that Jennifer had overheard a joke at a book club meeting? That Jennifer had recorded it and shared it? That Jennifer had orchestrated a systematic campaign to socially destroy her? It sounded insane when she tried to articulate it. I want to file a counter-complaint, Sarah said quietly, for harassment, for deliberate property damage, for conspiracy to damage my reputation. Officer Martinez looked uncomfortable. Sarah, at this point, I'd strongly recommend you speak with an attorney. The situation has become complicated, and you need legal representation. When Sarah left the police station, she felt untethered from reality. How had this happened? How had she gone from being the victim of a hit-and-run to being the suspect in a harassment case? She called Marcus from the car. He didn't answer. She tried again. Still nothing. She drove home and found him in the kitchen with Emma, and she could immediately see that something had shifted in his expression. He looked at her like she was a stranger. Where have you been? He asked. The police station. I told you I had to go. Emma came home from school crying, Marcus said. His voice was flat, controlled. She said that girls at school are calling her names, that they're saying her mother is racist, that they're posting things online about our family. Emma sat at the kitchen table, her eyes red and puffy. Sarah's heart broke at the sight of her daughter's pain. I'm so sorry, baby, Sarah said, moving toward Emma. But Emma flinched away. Is it true? Emma asked. Did you say that stuff about Amanda? I made a joke, Sarah said carefully. A bad joke, one that I regret. But Emma, what Jennifer Walsh is doing, what she's sharing, she's taking things out of context. She's deliberately trying to hurt our family. Why? Emma asked. Why would she do that? Because, Sarah said, and then she stopped. because explaining the full situation to her 13-year-old daughter felt like asking her to understand adult cruelty at a level she shouldn't have to. Because sometimes people are just mean. Marcus grabbed a beer from the fridge. I need you to fix this, he said to Sarah. Whatever this is, whatever you did to Jennifer Walsh, you need to fix it. Because right now my career is at risk. My daughter is being bullied at school, and my wife is being investigated by the police for harassment. I didn't do anything to her, Sarah said, hearing the desperation in her own voice. Then why is she doing all this? Marcus asked. People don't just decide to destroy someone's life for no reason. What happened, Sarah? Sarah sat down at the kitchen table. She tried to explain about the book club, about the recording, about Jennifer's apparent vendetta. But as she spoke, she could see Marcus's expression harden. He didn't believe her. Or rather, he believed some of it, but he'd already decided that Sarah must have done something to provoke this level of retaliation. After Marcus took Emma upstairs to bed, Sarah sat alone in the kitchen with her laptop. She opened Google and began searching. How to prove someone is harassing you. How to get deleted text messages back. How to fight a false harassment complaint. Nothing helpful came up. Then she had a thought. She opened her phone's cloud backup and checked the deleted messages folder. Nothing there either. Jennifer had been thorough. She'd somehow ensured that the messages Sarah had received were completely scrubbed from existence, unless they weren't. Sarah remembered that she'd taken a screenshot of one of the messages. Just one. She'd sent it to herself in a private note because she'd wanted to have documentation. She searched through her files frantically until she found it, a single screenshot, time-stamped and clear. By the way, I told the country club board about what happened at the March book club meeting. It wasn't much, but it was something. It was proof that Jennifer had initiated contact about the country club board. It was proof of the orchestration. Sarah opened a new email and composed a message to Officer Martinez, attaching the screenshot. She wrote, "This is a screenshot of a text message from Jennifer Walsh, sent to me on Thursday evening. It proves that she deliberately contacted me after the incident with my mailbox, that she initiated the harassment, and that the sequence of events contradicts her statement. I'm requesting that you re-examine the evidence in this case." She sent it before she could second-guess herself. Then she opened another browser window and began researching private investigators. If the police weren't going to help her, maybe someone else could. Maybe someone could find the digital breadcrumbs that Jennifer had left behind. The dash cam footage that was suspiciously convenient. The witnesses who just happened to be available. The deleted text messages that had vanished from existence. As she researched, Sarah realized something crucial. Jennifer had made one mistake. She'd been so focused on destroying Sarah socially and making her look like the aggressor in the police report that she hadn't considered that Sarah might fight back. Sarah spent the next 6 hours documenting everything. Every text message that hadn't been deleted. Every comment on social media. Every conversation with the country club board. She created a timeline, a narrative arc that showed Jennifer's deliberate campaign to destroy her reputation. She found the original book club recording. Jennifer must have uploaded it somewhere, shared it with someone. And yes, there it was, in a group chat that Jennifer had created. Just so you know, a private group with about 30 members of the country club, all women. And in the group, there were screenshots of messages Sarah had supposedly sent. Messages that Sarah didn't remember sending. Messages that sounded vaguely like her but were subtly off. The kind of thing that someone could have fabricated by taking fragments of real conversations and stitching them together into something worse. Sarah's hands were shaking now. Jennifer hadn't just recorded her. Jennifer had potentially fabricated additional evidence. And if Sarah could prove that, if she could show that the screenshots were fake, then everything Jennifer had built would collapse. She booked an appointment with a lawyer named David Chen for Monday morning. When she told the receptionist what the case was about, the receptionist went very quiet. "I'll make sure Mr. Chen has extra time," she said. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She lay in bed next to Marku,